Last time on the Skip and Josh podcast.
For crying out loud, these guys are professional athletes. They can run 90 feet without having a heart attack.
Clayton Kershaw will be fine. There are a couple of pitchers who would not have been fine. One of them is Bartolo Colon.
I would understand.
He would not have been fine.
No, because he'd still be running right now.
You're listening to the Skip and Josh podcast with Skip Sherman and Josh Obadia.
I'm Josh in Toronto.
I'm Skip in Montreal.
In today's episode, we talk baseball,
The NFL trade deadline,
and Canadian teams in the NHL.
But let's start with the World Series.
Okay, Skip, let's talk about the World Series.
The World Series, it's like I feel a void in my life because there's no more baseball.
Yeah, it's been bad without baseball. The World Series didn't even go 7 games. And actually, there were only 2 good games in the whole World Series, if you ask me. Games,
I think one, no? Just the 18-inning game, which I couldn't even stay up for. So that doesn't even count.
It's interesting because last time we spoke, it was after Game 2. And Games 1 and 2 weren't that interesting.
No.
But then Games 3 and 4 were both interesting.
Yes.
But then Game 5 was nothing.
The Red Sox are better.
And it's interesting, yes. The Dodgers won only 1 game, and it took them 18 innings to do it.
Yeah.
I did not stay up for that game. I think I fell asleep in the 10th inning.
So if you didn't stay up, did it actually happen?
If a tree falls in the forest.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, it did actually happen. And I had no clue. You know, obviously I'm asleep, and I wake up at 7 or 8 o'clock to check what happened. And it turns out the game had just ended.
Yeah, the same thing happened to me.
Did you know?
Exactly the same thing.
Did you know in that game that Clayton Kershaw pinch hit in that game?
What?
I didn't even know this till a few days later.
He's a good athlete, and he's actually a decent hitter for a pitcher. You know, I mean, I've seen him hit home runs, right? We've seen him get hits. He
didn't get a hit this time.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Obviously, we both fell asleep. If the Expos were playing in that 18-inning game,
you texted me this, yeah.
What would you have done?
I would have definitely stayed awake. I mean, I'm just like any hardcore Red Sox fan or hardcore Dodger fan, stayed awake, right? I'm sure people stayed awake. Me and you I didn't have like a vested interest, you know, in what was going on, you know. Although 18 innings, it was really long.
It was easier for Dodger fans because it was 3 hours earlier.
Yeah.
So the game ended at around midnight LA time, or maybe maybe 1 a.m. LA time or something. So that's like a normal time almost for a game to end.
Right.
But for people in Boston or on the East Coast.
No, it was deadly.
And somehow I probably would have managed to stay awake if the Expos were actually playing.
For sure. What do you feel about Pearce as the MVP? Did you like that? Or
actually, I do agree with it. I know some people were saying it should have been David Price, and yeah, he pitched well. But overall, I think Steve Pearce had a better series and deserved to win the MVP.
It's always easier to give it to a position player because they're playing like every day pretty much. Price pitched great his 2 games, so I mean I would have been okay either way. When it was obvious the Red Sox were gonna win, like the last game, I was like, I wonder if Price is gonna be the MVP. You know, that was what popped into my head.
So a few things that bothered me. Of course, there's always something that bothers me.
You can't look at the positives, Josh. You got to look at the positives.
When they took Price out of the game, he was fine. Yeah. He could have probably pitched a complete game the way he was pitching.
That happened every game for every team. That's just the way games are managed now. They don't want to let their guys go more than 6 innings.
But in this particular case, the reason they took him out was different. And not because they wanted to take him out, because for some reason, they wanted Kelly to pitch an inning and they wanted Sale to pitch an inning. It was more of like a public relations move than it was, we need this guy to win the game.
But why do you say public relations? It's just that's what to me, it's like they had their plan and they were going to do their plan no matter what.
I have a feeling that Sale never said this and no one ever said this, but I think that he wasn't happy that he didn't start that game because he was supposed to start that game. And it was his turn in the rotation to start. And so I think by letting him close out the game, then he gets into the game. And of course, he's in the highlight. Every time you see like the last out of the World Series, it's him, right? So I think that's part of the reason they did that because they wanted to sort of appease him.
Appease him. Well, if that's the reason, look, you do have to keep your guys happy, but I mean, he should be happy that they're going to win the World Series, regardless of whether he pitches or not.
I know, but you know how these guys are. All they care about is themselves.
I don't know if it's all of them, but I mean, when you've gotten to game 5, 6, whatever of the World Series, I mean, you've won so many games, like he should be comfortable enough with his position on the team. Like, everybody knows he's their best pitcher. This is not a secret.
He's not even that good. I mean, yes, he's really good, but you notice how he gets injured every year, and he can't last a full season.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, you could say that about a lot of pitchers, though. I feel like there's a lot of pitchers that when they're healthy, they're amazing.
I agree.
Steven Strasburg, number 1. Even Max Scherzer, right? He's also like,
well, actually, Max Scherzer might be the only one that is actually worth the money that he's getting paid because he actually stays healthy the whole season.
He stays healthy, but like, you remember the few times they made it, when was the last time they made it to the playoffs? 2 years ago?
I think so.
And like, he had a great year, but when he got to the playoffs, he had this like nagging groin injury or nagging something, like just to get him off his game a little bit, and then he wasn't exactly the same Max Scherzer as the playoffs.
That's because as I said many episodes ago, the Washington Nationals are cursed.
That's true.
And they will never win anything.
Well, so there's a couple of big free agents, like Machado's one of them, right?
There's a bunch.
So I'm sure you heard the same as me that like the big rumors Machado's going to the Phillies.
I did.
And then we just talked about the Nationals, and like apparently the Nationals are making Bryce Harper an offer, but I don't know if that's just to.
Oh no, they made him a qualifying offer because if they don't, and then they lose him in free agency, they get nothing. So it's basically a formality. I mean, you want to give him a qualifying offer. I don't think he's going to accept the qualifying offer, but they basically had no choice but to do that.
Yeah, otherwise they don't get their compensatory picks.
Correct.
But where do you think he'll go?
Bryce Harper?
Yeah.
I have a feeling he's going to stay in Washington.
Wow.
Well, because there's only like 4 or 5 teams that have enough money to sign him. Right? Yeah. And one of those teams is the Nationals.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the Red Sox have enough money, but they don't need him.
Neither do the Yankees.
Well, I don't know. The Yankees, maybe they do, because who's their left fielder?
Well, maybe, but they already have enough trouble like fitting Judge and Stanton. Like,
Stanton DH'd most of the year.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know. I'm not sure that like, he can't play center, Bryce Harper. So
he played center like the second half of the season this year,
I know,
and he wants to play center field. He's always said that.
But he's not good at it.
No, but he can play. I mean, whatever. He's adequate.
He's adequate. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I don't know. Maybe I still think maybe the Angels are a dark horse there.
Yeah, that's the other team that has a lot of money. The Angels, yes.
Yeah. And if you're like a team, do you want to sign Manny Machado?
No, I'm glad you brought this up. Because I think he cost himself a lot of money during the playoffs by not hustling, by doing dirty things,
by being an idiot, by being an
absolute idiot. Yes,
right.
And so I think even the Yankees said, I don't know if the Yankees that said it, but I read a story somewhere online this week that the Yankees aren't interested in Manny Machado. And
wow, okay.
And I read somewhere else that the fans in New York, they'd be booing him from day one if he were on the Yankees.
I don't know about that. Did they remember Randy Johnson? They all hated him, and then he became a Yankee, and then everybody loved him. I mean, he sucked as a Yankee, but they loved him.
It's true. If you produce, they love you.
Yeah. He also wants to play shortstop.
Well, he's good enough to play shortstop on any team.
He is. But I mean, a lot of the good teams might already have a good shortstop. I don't know. It depends where he's going to go,
By the way, I need to correct myself from last episode. I thought that Machado was wearing a shirt under his jersey that said Orioles.
Yeah. What happened with Shirtgate? What happened with that Shirtgate?
As it turns out, I got a closer look at the shirt under his jersey.
Yeah.
And it said October, not Orioles.
Oh, it's like whatever the Dodger shirt is probably for the playoffs,
correct.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Every team had their own like slogan, I guess, or
Yes,
whatever
they did.
you want to
They
call
did.
it.
And I think the Red Sox slogan was "Do damage," or was that the Astros slogan? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
One
I think those shirts are stupid.
one of the teams had that slogan.
They do that now. The NBA does that also.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
So, by the way, if they ever make a movie about the Red Sox winning the World Series,
Yeah. Okay.
you know which actor is going to play Brock Holt?
No, tell me.
Matt Damon, because they already look identical.
That's so funny. They do look a lot alike. That's actually very true. That's very true.
And about Steve Pearce, we talked about him, and he definitely deserved to win the MVP. But I don't understand this guy because he was basically a platoon player on the Blue Jays at the beginning of the season,
Yeah.
playing mostly left field and not having a particularly good season. He's been on every single team in the American League East, so you can call him a journeyman.
Yeah.
And he comes to the Red Sox, who have potentially the best hitting lineup, certainly this year and maybe of all time. And they bat him third, which I did not understand at all. Like, how do you bat this guy third in that lineup? I don't get it.
And when the Red Sox got him, I liked the move because they had Mitch Moreland, who's a first baseman who bats left, and Steve Pearce always had that reputation of like a guy who could hit left-handed pitching, right? So he was the perfect platoon with Moreland. But then Moreland was a little bit injured now in the playoffs. They didn't want to use him, and they just kept using Steve Pearce, and he just kept hitting, right? Regardless of who he was facing.
I couldn't understand how in that lineup he's batting third ahead of JD Martinez, ahead of Xander Bogaerts, and ahead of
Well, I mean, they changed the lineup around at certain points because JD was batting third a lot during the year, and same thing with Bogaerts and even I mean, Betts Benintendi, the 1-2, like that was like
that almost that usually
that never
stayed the
changed.
Same.
Yeah. So I mean, we're gonna head into the 2019 season and the same teams are going to be favored. The Red Sox, the Yankees, the Astros, and then in the National League, the Dodgers, right?
Yeah, it's not that exciting.
And we'll see where we go. I mean, maybe the Brewers are going to try to like take that next step because they certainly seem to have a really good team. And I think some people feel that the Mets can somehow make a splash if they get healthy because their pitching was so strong, but
well,
I don't know.
Didn't they say Cespedes is not coming back anytime soon? And isn't he their best hitter?
He is. But I mean, they're saying, maybe they're going to be in the mix for Machado or whoever. But I don't know. I mean, certainly their pitching is strong enough. But I mean, the Dodgers have been to the World Series now. Like, they've won the division 7 years in a row.
I didn't realize that.
It's nuts. It's like, okay, thanks Dodgers, but. I mean, we'll see what happens. I read that Kershaw, something happened with his contract last night.
They re-signed him.
Yeah, like
3 years, $93 million.
It's too much.
It's definitely too much.
He's a great pitcher, but he's like he's not getting better.
No, he's not. And his fastball is slower.
Yeah, like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, you look at his stats and you're like, oh my God, this is the best pitcher in baseball. And he's been the best pitcher in baseball during the last 10 years or however long he's been pitching. Like by far, it's not even close.
Yeah.
But like he's not getting better. Like he's only going to look at his stats from last year, look at his stats from the year before and subtract a little bit because he's going to be a little bit worse and he's going to be a little bit worse the year after that. And certainly he hasn't pitched well in the playoffs, or maybe they want to give him the chance to redeem himself and get back to the playoffs, right? I don't know.
So his contract is $93 million for 3 years.
Yeah.
So let me try and put myself in the room when they're negotiating the deal.
Yeah.
Do the Dodgers, is it like this? Do the Dodgers say, we'll give you $90 million for 3 years, so that's 30 a year. That's a good number. Right. And then Kershaw's agent says, no. 90's not enough. We need 93. Like,
yeah.
What is the difference between 90 and 93 million?
It might be that like 30 million is like this big threshold, and he just wants to be like, now he's the highest paid player ever because at 31,
It just... It makes me laugh.
It really is ridiculous.
Actually, it makes me cry, not laugh.
You cry. You cry. Yeah. All right. I mean, do you have any more baseball? I mean, we can do a whole episode on baseball if you want, but
No, I think that's it for baseball for me.
what else you got? I mean, the only thing I had on my list this week was the World Series.
Okay, well, I got a couple of things on my list.
Okay, go for it.
The National Football League.
Now, this is mostly football, but it's not just football.
Mm-hmm.
So you recall, I think it was week 1 or 2 of the NFL season when the Cleveland Browns cut their kicker, Zane Gonzalez.
Mm-hmm.
And then the same week, the Minnesota Vikings cut their kicker, Daniel Carlson.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting because I'm sure, I mean, I do this when I watch sports, and I'm guessing you do this when you watch sports. You'll see a player make a bonehead play, and you'll probably say out loud, even if there's no one sitting next to you, you'll probably say something like, oh, they should cut that guy.
He should be cut immediately.
But they never actually do that.
No, but Minnesota sort of did, right?
Minnesota did and Cleveland did.
Yeah.
And then this week, obviously, Ty Montgomery of the Green Bay Packers
God,
made one of the most
God.
bonehead plays ever, taking the ball out of the end zone when all he had to do was take a knee and give Aaron Rodgers 2 minutes and 5 seconds to go down the field and get a field goal. And so, of course, that day, never mind the next day, that day everyone was saying, oh, you got to cut Ty Montgomery. And then, lo and behold, 2 days later, Ty Montgomery is traded.
Yeah, for a 7th round draft pick.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because the timing of his bonehead play coincided with the trade deadline, which was Tuesday at 4 p.m.
Correct.
So I wonder if it wasn't the trade deadline, if it was the week after, would they have cut him? Or like, I don't know what would have happened. But to me, this is exactly what happened. The game ended. The next day, Aaron Rodgers calls up the general manager and is like, get this guy off the team. And the GM is like, okay, Aaron, I got your back. And that's the whole thing. Like, I mean, there's no way that this guy could have stayed on the team. There's just no way.
Meanwhile, I agree. But meanwhile, do you remember 2 years ago, this guy, they had no running backs on the team because all their running backs were injured, and they used him at running back, and he was phenomenal.
I know. He's like a fairly talented player, and I'm sure he could catch on. I don't even know what team they traded him to. Like, he could have a career. I mean, he's had a career already, and the career of a running back is like what, a year, 1.5 seasons. It's like.
Speaking of the NFL trading deadline, a couple of other interesting things happened that day. The
Yeah.
Packers made another trade, which I don't understand.
Me too. I don't understand it either.
They traded. Is his name Clinton Ha Dix?
His first name is Ha.
Ha Clinton Dix.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, is that what it is on his birth certificate? Is that how it's written?
I don't know.
Because that is the strangest name I've ever heard. But apparently he's a really good player, and they traded him for nothing.
I don't understand what happened because the Packers seem to be so mad about the Ty Montgomery thing, about how it cost them a win, and then now, like, oh no, we got to get rid of this guy. And then the next day, they basically sort of said, okay, we're giving up.
I guess.
Like, unless, I mean, look, I read some stuff that said like there's some trouble in the locker room with this guy, but I mean, can't that same thing be said for every team? Like, there's always a-holes on every team, you know, and like if you win, no one cares, right? Like you tolerate people. But yeah, I'm really surprised. I'm really surprised, and I mean, a lot of it might come down to money, you know, and but
so also that day,
strange.
The thing that surprised me that day wasn't so much the trades that were made, but since I've known you, you're always like the first person to find out everything about everything.
Oh my God.
You're on social media. You got your phone with you. You always know everything before.
Yeah.
So I send you a text message like an hour after this trade, which
but
I'm going to mention.
you just sent me. All you sent me was Golden Tate.
Yeah.
You didn't write like Golden Tate was traded to the Eagles or the Eagles acquired Golden Tate. You just wrote Golden Tate
because it happened an hour before I sent it to you. So I figured, by now he knows. So I'm just going to send a text, Golden Tate, and your response was, what about him? And then I'm like, the Eagles got him. And you didn't even know. So you must be getting old.
Well, I mean, it was a work day. I was busy with work. I had a lot of stuff to do. I had a crazy day with work. I was juggling a lot of things. And I wasn't paying attention to the trade deadline. And So yeah, but then as soon as you told me, I was like, oh, well, that's a pretty big acquisition. Like, he's great. He's the best receiver. He was the Lions' #1 receiver. He's a really good receiver. And he's arguably actually the best receiver now on the Eagles, because I actually kind of like him better than Alshon Jeffrey. He's a different type of receiver. Alshon Jeffrey's a bigger guy, but the receiver wasn't necessarily like the position the Eagles needed to address. But I'm glad they got something,
I guess.
Yeah,
and then,
I was more concerned about the secondary for the Eagles. But I think they feel that, like, if everyone's healthy, they're okay. And now they have the bye week this week, so players are going to start finally getting a little bit healthy.
So sticking with football,
yeah,
a couple other things. So you know football a lot better than I do. Especially you play football video games. Your son plays football video games. So there's all these like plays that you can use that I have no clue. Like, what's that? Spider something or other. I have no clue what it's called. The
Spider 2Y banana.
That one. Yes. Thank you.
Which that's John Gruden's play.
I have no clue what that is. So,
yeah.
So there's another play that's used in football multiple times a game by every team.
Yeah.
And I believe it's called the run pass option.
Yeah, the Eagles perfected it last year.
And this has been used in football it's not new. It's been used for years by many teams. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, in the last week or 10 days, I've heard the acronym RPO 100 times. And I never heard this acronym until a week ago. And now I hear it all the time. I don't understand.
But you didn't watch the Super Bowl last year? They said it at least 25 times during the Super Bowl broadcast.
I mean, I watched the game. I never heard them say RPO.
The Eagles have been doing the RPO all last season, and then when they started to, progress in the playoffs, everybody started to notice. And yeah, I mean, it's a standard play now for a lot of teams. It's basically, they call a run and a pass in the huddle. They call both.
Okay.
And the quarterback gets to the line and he decides what they're going to do. But he doesn't tell them what they're going to do. He either gives it to the running back or he doesn't. Right? He either gives it to the running back or he keeps it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I never heard RPO until a week ago, and now I hear it all the time. It's just weird.
I think you must have been watching games on mute most of last year.
It could be. That could legitimately be the case.
Yeah, yeah. So I as people know, I did the picks for you in your pick'em pool last week.
Yes, I wasn't going to bring this up, but okay.
It was a failure.
And I fired
you. I feel like I failed you. Yeah. I got off to such a great start with the first two games, like the Thursday night
and the early game on Sunday.
And the early Sunday morning, the London game.
Yeah.
I was like 2-0. I was like, I'm 2-0. I'm like, Josh is going to be so happy. I'm like, I'm on fire. And then, like, I just lost every game. And it's so funny because I never pick with the spreads. I never pay attention to the spreads. Mm-hmm. But because I made the picks for you, you watch games differently
100%
when you know about the spreads. Because, like, that Denver game, it was plus 9.5 and they were down by 10.
And you took the Broncos.
Yeah, it was plus 9.5 and they were down by 10. And the game's over at this point, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, they're going to lose by 10 and then I'm going to lose the spread by the 0.5. Mm-hmm. But then for whatever reason, they get down there and they still think they can win the game. They kick a field goal and then they only lose by 7.
And so you know what Scott Van Pelt calls that?
What did he call that?
A bad beat. When you lose, if you had picked the other team, when you lose at the last few seconds because a team kicks a field goal or who knows, something stupid happens.
There was 2 games that had a bad beat last week. I forget what the other one was. But yeah, I mean, you kind of watch games differently. Like, I forget what the other game was, but there was the Bills and the Patriots.
Yeah, the Patriots were favored by 13.5.
And they were not going to cover.
No, it was. I think it was 9-6 at halftime, that game.
But they got a pick 6 at the end of the game.
I know.
That pushed them over the spread.
Yeah.
So, all this to say is, all you kids out there, don't gamble.
So just so you know, interestingly enough, you ended up with 60 points the way the scoring works in that pool, which is exactly the same amount of points that I had making my own picks a week earlier.
Okay, great.
So by the way, I hired someone new to make my picks this week.
How much are you paying them?
I'm not paying them anything.
Who's doing the picks?
Schnerbs.
That's the best guy to get.
So
why didn't you go to him originally?
Well, because I wanted to give you a chance. If you'd done well, you would have kept the job.
Okay. I'm going to... Well, no, I was going to say I'm going to send you my picks so you can see them, but I think that just causes controversy and stress.
Well, it wouldn't cause controversy. But anyway,
So,
the picks are done.
All the Raiders fans out there. I'll say a prayer for you. But you're 1-7 right now. You just got killed on Thursday night by the 49ers. And you have this coach signed for the next, 9 or 10 years, making, I don't know how many millions every year.
Well, 9.5 years.
Yeah.
Remaining.
It's ugly. It's ugly.
Oh, it's bad.
If you're a Raiders fan. It's really bad. Like, the 49ers are not a good team. They used a quarterback that literally no one ever heard of.
And he threw 3 touchdowns.
Not only did he throw 3 touchdowns, I read something like he had the highest QB rating of any quarterback. It's one of those stupid stats of any quarterback on a Thursday night game, like since like in the last like 10 years since they started Thursday Night Football. I think.
Yeah.
It's something absurd. And I not only did I not even hear of this guy, I actually can't tell you his name right now. Like, so
his last name is Mullen. I think his last name's Mullen.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
But it's ugly. All that to say is that Raiders fans, I mean, you all thought you were going to the Super Bowl this year with Gruden. And now it seems like maybe your quarterback is going to even get moved in the offseason. There, like where there's smoke, there's fire, right? So there's a lot of talk about Carr and, maybe he's not happy or maybe he's not really Gruden's guy or whatever. So I really wouldn't be surprised if they make a move for a different quarterback and Carr's on a different team next year. And if I'm any other team in the league, I'd be happy to have Carr. I think he could be good.
Actually, I'm surprised Carr wasn't traded before the deadline this year because they've already thrown in the towel.
I almost expected him to, but trading for like a starting quarterback is a tough thing to do because presumably if you're a buyer at the trading deadline, you think you want to bolster your team for a playoff run. Mm-hmm. And if you are a buyer and you want to have a playoff run, presumably you have a quarterback, right?
Well, I can name you many teams that don't have a quarterback that could use Carr.
But are they teams that are in contention?
No, they're not.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like if you're a buyer, like you're in contention, you probably have a quarterback already. But you don't want to bring in
if the Buffalo Bills or the New York Giants acquire David Carr, it's not just for this season. They'd have him next season as well.
This is true. The Bills are not going to get him because I think they're going to be committed to Josh Allen.
Correct.
But the Giants for sure could use him.
Yes.
And think about how good the Jacksonville Jaguars could be with.
Yeah, that's another team. Actually, that would make the most sense because they actually have a good team. Although they've been playing lousy this year.
They were my Super Bowl pick in our NFL preview.
It's not looking so good.
It's not even looking good for them to even make the playoffs, to be honest. So
playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
By the way, the name of the quarterback on the Niners is Nick Mullins.
Nick Mullins. I'm going to go hook up.
No relation to the band member from U2.
Okay, that's the drummer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking ahead at the games tomorrow, there's 2 games that I'm really keeping my eye on. There's a couple of actually good games. Like last week, it was all terrible games. Mm-hmm. But you have the Steelers-Ravens, which is a big rivalry all the time.
Yeah. There's a lot of divisional games tomorrow.
You have the Rams-Saints, which is most people are saying it's the 2 best teams in the NFC.
Yeah, I agree.
And then the game that everybody's hyping up, and I think it's completely overhyped, is the Patriots-Packers on the Sunday night game.
Speaking of that game, have you seen the Michael Jordan commercial about that game?
I haven't seen it, but I heard about it. Yeah.
So it's a pretty good commercial, actually.
He talks about how they had 2 superstars with the same jersey number and right?
Yeah. So then at first you think he's talking about him and LeBron.
Right.
And then it turns out that he's talking about Rodgers and Brady.
I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
So Aaron Rodgers is 34.
Okay.
Okay. Which is old for quarterback standards, right? I mean, he's getting older.
Yeah.
If you had to choose right now, which quarterback would still be like a star in the league in 5 years from now? So Aaron Rodgers will be 39, right? Mm-hmm. who Tom Brady will be
45,
whatever his
46.
50? I don't know how old he is now.
No, I think he's 41 now.
Yeah.
I think.
Like, who do you think has a better chance of still being a star in the league from 5 years from now?
It's definitely Rodgers.
I think it's Brady.
You're crazy.
Because Rodgers plays like every week on this like knee that's like held together with duct tape, it looks like. He's always limping around. And
This is true. But the fact is, he's 34. You just said it.
yeah, I know. I'm just trying to just trying to be dramatic.
Yes.
But in 5 years from now, you think Brady could still be playing?
I don't think so, actually. I really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the oldest player in the NFL right now? Who is it? What position does he play?
Must be Brady. Or a kicker.
Yeah, it's probably a kicker. Like
There's not many. I can't think of guys that are in their 40s.
He's like 40 something, but he's not 45.
Who? Sorry?
Vinatieri.
Who? Yeah, he might be. He's 40. I'm sure.
He's a man.
I'm a man. I'm 40.
All right, let's get away from the NFL. I think we're done with it.
Yes.
What else you got?
The National Hockey League.
Okay, so a couple of hockey things.
Hockey, yeah.
Yeah.
It's exciting here in Montreal.
Well,
Habs are like winning games.
I wasn't going to start with the Canadians, but since you brought it up, someone needs
Yeah.
to explain to me how they're actually winning games. First of all,
I can't explain it.
The thing that we said at the beginning of the year where the Leafs are going to have more wins than the Senators and Canadians combined, that's never going to happen now.
That's that's gone.
Yeah.
That's a fail. Yeah.
But I don't
That's
understand
not
how the
happening.
Canadians are winning any games at all. And actually,
I don't understand it either.
I'm a little upset about it because what's going to happen is they're not going to continue this amazing run, but they might have enough wins to make the playoffs, and then
Yeah.
they'll lose in the first round, and they won't get
yeah.
a good draft pick, and then you're on the road to mediocrity
Again.
Well, actually,
Again.
you're not actually you've been on it, and you're still on it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. I don't know, but I don't know how they're doing it. I mean, good coaching.
And without Shea Weber, arguably their best or second best player.
To me, it just looks like they're playing with so much more intensity. They skate around and forecheck like crazy, and they have all these like what I would call pests. Like on every line, they have like pests. So like Gallagher, Shaw, Domi, like these guys are guys you hate to play against, right? So I don't know. It's
Shaw's been a healthy scratch, by the way, which I'm happy
Yeah.
about because I never liked him when they actually acquired him.
He was a healthy scratch because the coach is trying to like prove a point to him about, taking stupid penalties and stuff, but whatever.
I'm glad because last year he took stupid penalties and they just let him play the next shift. They didn't even bench him at all.
I know. And the Leafs are like basically have the same record as the Habs right now. They played one more game. I don't know. How are people feeling in Toronto with Austin Matthews like injured and
So, okay, I'm glad you asked that question.
I listened to the Jack and Soph podcast this week, and they're very Toronto centric, and they talked a lot about Austin Matthews, about how people are saying he's injury prone, and people are on his case already. Like, it's crazy in Toronto. Like, this guy's their star, and like the people are on it. People are like already ready to like get rid of him. He's no good. Like what are you gonna do?
So my favorite app on my phone is the Score app. And one of the things I like about it is that it gives you breaking news or updates when there's something interesting going on in the world of sports.
Right.
But I only set it to give me news about things that I care about. So one of the things I care about is hockey. Mm-hmm. I don't have the Leafs as my favorite team. I have the Canadians as my favorite team.
You have general news for the NHL.
I do have general news for the NHL. So what was interesting was as soon as Matthews got injured, there's this breaking news on my phone. Austin Matthews injured. Not sure if he's going to return for the second period or third period or whatever period it was that it happened. And then, like half an hour later, there was a follow-up breaking news. Austin Matthews injured, not coming back in tonight's game. And then the next day, Austin Matthews injured, will not play in next game. I mean, there have been other injuries to other players in the NHL, and I have not received that many notifications on my phone about any of them. But for some reason, when Austin Matthews gets injured, it's like the world is coming to an end. It was the strangest thing.
it was Austin Matthews. That's it. That's pretty. It goes to show like how. I mean, I have American friends who have the Score app.
Mm-hmm.
They don't realize that the Score was this fringe Canadian TV network. Maybe we're telling this to the viewers right now, the listeners right now, who don't even realize that, who have the Score app and you're in the United States. The Score was a fringe kind of Canadian sports network that basically only showed you the scores. That's why it was the Score. Mm-hmm. They had the ticker on all the time, and all they did was basically show you highlights over and over and over and over. And then a few years ago, they were bought by Sportsnet. But the app is kind of an independent thing, right? But it just goes to show how Toronto and Canada centric it is when it comes to, I mean, someone still has to be the so-called, I guess, content editor, to decide what gets pushed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it surprised me a little bit, but I guess it shouldn't have.
So I guess he's out for like 4 weeks or something.
Something like that, yeah. And by the way, I don't know if you heard this stat this week. The last 5 Leafs home games, mm-hmm. they have not scored a goal in the first 2 periods of all 5 of those games, which is, I believe, a record.
That's bad. Well, I mean, regardless of, they still have enough firepower without Austin Matthews to score goals.
They should. Yes.
Yeah, they should.
So getting back to the Canadians.
Yeah.
I know that they did beat the Washington Capitals on Thursday.
Yeah, a miracle.
What was interesting about that game is Lars Eller, former Canadian, scored 2 goals mm-hmm. against his old team. And I'm pretty sure he scored more goals on Thursday than he did in his entire Canadians career.
Well, he scored more than 2 goals as a half.
Well, I don't remember any more than 2.
Well, he certainly did. We can look up his stats. I'm sure he scored 10 goals at least each year he was on the team.
I'm just saying it's frustrating because Capitals fans who followed the team last year and saw how good he was in the playoffs and then saw these 2 goals that he scored on Thursday, they probably think he's a good player.
Well, I mean, if you watch the playoffs if you just watched the playoffs last year, didn't watch any regular season games, you came down from Mars and you said, I'm going to watch the NHL playoffs, you would say, man, this guy Lars Eller is really good.
Exactly. That's what
he was great for them, and he was great for them in the playoffs.
But I don't think he's as good as everyone thinks he is. I don't even think he's as good as he thinks he is.
No, I always thought about Lars Eller is he's a big body, he can skate, he has really good skills, but he has no idea how to play hockey. Like, when you watch him, you're like, I mean, I don't want to use the cliche like low hockey IQ, but that's what it is, right? He shoots every time he should pass. He passes every time he should shoot. He hangs on to the puck way too long when he should just get rid of it. Or, he's always doing the wrong thing,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And maybe something happened in the playoffs last year. Something started to click. They got into a flow, I don't know. He was put in different positions to succeed where they said, you got to step up. But good for him. But yeah. It was a crazy game, that Washington Canadiens game. There was the Habs pulled it off in the last 2 minutes of the game. Everything happened.
Yeah, I saw the highlights. I didn't see the game live.
It's a pretty lousy goal that Domi scored, though. Holtby should not be happy with that, letting that one in.
No, there've been a lot of goals in the NHL. I think last night there was a game in the NHL that was 7-6 between Vancouver and Colorado.
Yeah. Well, you were talking last week about how scoring's up, but
it's up in hockey, it's up in basketball, it's up in football, it's up in baseball. Scoring is up in every
basketball.
Team sport.
Basketball. Look, we put a ban on talking about the NBA, so we're not going to talk about.
See, but I didn't even know that we put that ban on. I had no idea. I mean, luckily I haven't mentioned it, but I didn't know that we had put that ban on.
But scoring is up. Yeah, scoring is definitely up in the NBA. There's games that are like every day I look at the previous night's scores, there's teams scoring 140 points.
Okay, all you need to know about the NBA is that Derrick Rose scored 50 points in a game this week. Point final.
I can't believe we're talking about the NBA.
Well, you brought it up. You broke your own ban. I want to go back to hockey.
The ban was supposed to be is I didn't want to talk about a league where we already knew which team is going to win the championship already a year ago. When the day after last season ended, we already knew who was going to be winning the finals this year.
I think we already know who's going to win the finals next year also.
Yeah, there you go. Even more reason for the ban.
I mean, unless Kevin Durant leaves the Warriors, yes, the Warriors are going to win for the next few years.
Yeah. But even then, I think we'll talk about the NBA at a certain point because the East might be a little bit interesting with the Raptors and Celtics.
Have you noticed, I don't watch a lot of hockey, but have you noticed, or I haven't watched a lot of hockey until this week, that at the Bell Center, they made a big change at the Bell Center. Have you noticed this?
No.
The Montreal Canadiens logo at center ice is
huge.
different.
Yeah.
It's, first of all, it's one big logo. If you go back and look at the last, 20 years prior to this year, they used to have two smaller logos
Yeah.
at center ice, and now they have one big one. And I noticed it right. I'm like, that does not look right. That does not look the same as last year. I had to go back and look at the highlights from a game from last year just to make sure I wasn't dreaming.
Right. They promised they were going to change a lot of the in-arena experience this year, the Canadians did. And I guess that's their big move. It's the logo.
I don't know how that changes your experience.
They still use the same Coldplay music. You don't see it on TV, but when you're there.
I do like that song, though.
Yeah, but they've been using the same thing for 10 years, the same music, So. Yeah.
And one other hockey note. We were talking earlier about all those NFL kickers that were cut and how Ty Montgomery was traded 2 days after he screwed up. So I don't know if you watched any Ottawa Senators highlights this week. Mike Condon had a really bad first period where he gave up 3 goals, and the third one was a shot from the other team's blue line that was floating in, and he gave up the goal and they yanked him right away. Well, 12 hours later, the Senators cut Mike Condon.
They cut him.
They put him on waivers.
Condon.
They put him on waivers.
This guy, remember a couple of years ago, the guy was like carrying the mail for the Habs.
He actually kept the Canadians in a bunch of games that year.
He's a fringe goalie.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way he is. But
he played in that outdoor game against the Bruins, if I'm not mistaken.
Senators haven't had a really good goalie for pretty much ever.
Well, Craig Anderson's not bad. 1 year, Craig Anderson, I think, almost won the Vezina Trophy.
Well, that's what I'm saying. 1 year. But Craig Anderson is literally the most inconsistent goalie ever because he goes on 2 weeks. He can be amazing for a month and then he sucks for a month, right? But the Senators haven't had any good goalie they can rely on since for the whole lifetime of the franchise. I can't really. They've always had trouble with their goalies,
and yet they're having a decent season this year somehow.
Yeah, they're okay. I mean, like you said, you don't have to have a star. You have to have someone who can stop the puck. Sometimes.
Interesting. They got rid of their best player and they're having a decent season. The Canadians got rid of 2 of their better players and they're having a decent season.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's like when Seattle, the Mariners got rid of A-Rod and then they went on to win 115 games, I think, without him, right? I don't know if that was the same year, but.
Shortly after. Yeah. Well, that's when they got Ichiro.
Right.
Yeah. Addition by subtraction, maybe.
There you go.
With some of these teams,
there
right?
You go.
Before we sign off, remember, you can listen and subscribe to new unarchived episodes of the Skip and Josh podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Google, iHeartRadio, and of course, Spotify. If you listen to the show through Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review. We would love to hear from you via email, skipandjoshshow@gmail.com, via Twitter @skipandjosh, or by liking and following our Facebook page. And as always, skipandjosh.com has all the links how you can subscribe on any of those platforms.
We leave you with this.
I want to tell you something. I saw a movie last night again.
Okay.
I think you might like it.
You're going to a lot of movies lately.
Yeah, my wife's on a movie binge. She likes to go to the movie theater.
Okay, what movie?
We went to see Bohemian Rhapsody, the Queen
I've seen the trailer for this.
biopic. It's really good.
Really?
I really enjoyed it. I'm not a huge, I know you're not either, I'm not a huge fan of Queen. I never was a huge fan. I enjoy some of their songs. I like some of their music. But the movie's really good. The actor who plays Freddie Mercury is fantastic. And it's just a fun, enjoyable, good movie.
Okay.
Made me come home and I looked up all kinds of stuff about... I looked up we watched YouTube videos when we came home about their performances at Live Aid and different live stuff on Queen performing, and it was fun.
So we need to add a new segment to the show now every week, our weekly movie review.
We should find someone. If you're listening to the show and you feel that you have qualifications to be like a movie reviewer, send us an email or a tweet or contact us, and we'll make a little segment, the movie segment.
Well, I mean, we could just have your wife do it.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
She probably wouldn't want to come on our show.
She didn't like A Star Is Born.
Okay.
So
but she's allowed to not like a movie.
I know, but a movie that good and she didn't like it, that makes me wonder.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
What do you got?
So I wanted to let the listeners know that the college basketball season gets underway in earnest on Tuesday.
Oh, yes.
There are a bunch of games, but the most important one is Duke versus Kentucky. And it's not a home game for either team. It's a neutral site game. It's part of an ESPN doubleheader. It's the second game. And luckily for us in Canada, we get to see the game on TSN.
I can't wait to watch. You know, they're calling this Duke class like the new Fab Five.
I did not hear that, actually.
I saw it on social media in a couple places. They're saying it's like maybe one of the best recruiting classes ever. With
I don't like comparisons to the Fab Five because Duke beat the Fab Five every time.
I know.
So like, you know.
Yeah.
I'd also like to shout out to a friend of mine, Chico Nacion, who recently got hired by The Score to be their basketball editor.
Oh, we just talked about The Score forever. I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
Good for you, Chico. I look forward to reading your stuff on The Score. So when I read articles on The Score app, is he going to be the one writing them?
Well, I don't know how much writing he's actually going to do. He's the one who decides what stories to put up and that sort of thing.
Gotcha. Okay, good. Good for him.
And
Congratulations.
that's for basketball. I think they have one person for each sport, or more than one person for each sport, depending on what shift you're working. I don't know how it works there.
Right, okay. Cool. Congratulations, Chico.
Yeah.
All right, Josh. Speak to you next week.
Okay. Talk to you later.
All right.